That's it.
Thanks, mate.
Cool. Sorry.
We got the technology. Okay, so this meeting has been recorded, and this is going to go on Evolution Film YouTube channel, where we would be able to share this workshop number 2 from this British Academy amazing project with the rest of the world. Thank you to everyone who is joining us now on live or on replay. We appreciate you all. So it will be, we are planning for this workshop to be for 2 hours with half an hour at the end. So towards the 1 hour and a half, questions and answers. We have Justin Edgar, who is joining us from 104 Films, which is the Pioneer Disability UK pioneer company in disability in the UK. So if anyone wants to contact us, you can reach us through our website, which is www.evolutionfilm.org. I'm going to pop this in the chat as well. Please ask any questions if you have as we follow through, and we're going to reply to you as soon as we can as well. I'm going to give the word now to Professor Lee, who will introduce you to our guest speaker, and I'll see you around 10 to 3 perhaps.
Thanks a lot, Raina. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. There's 30 people at the moment in this meeting. Just to quickly recap, this is a British Academy event, and this event is about inclusion in terms of disability, and disability includes mental health as well, within the British film industry. But it's expanded beyond Britain. We're now working with a number of other different countries, and hopefully this expands into Indonesia. So as Raina put it, today we have Justin Edgar with us. Justin Edgar's last 2 films are We Are the Freaks and The Marker, starring John Hannah. These were bought by Netflix. He began his career directing documentaries for Channel 4 and Doctors for the BBC, and directed his first feature film, Large for Film 4, aged just 26. His second feature film, Special People, premiered at the 2007 Tribeca Film Festival and went on to win a Royal Television Society Diversity Award. His company, 104 Films, worked on the BAFTA-nominated Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, and co-produced feature documentary Notes on Blindness, which was nominated for 3 BAFTAs, including Best British Film. He sits on the Disability Roundtable for the BFI and advises Channel 4, the BBC and Netflix on disability. His film, including Special People, have been archived at the BFI as works of cultural significance, and he is currently writing a book on disability in British film for Bloomsbury and producing 4 short films with new disabled talent for Film 4. His new feature film, Simon, starring Maxine Peake, BAFTA Breakthrough nominee Comrade Khan, Peaky Blinders, and Morid Clark in forthcoming Rings of Power, is funded by Creative Europe's media programme and due to shoot in early 2023. He's also delivering the Rose Gower, developing the Rose Grower, a political conspiracy limited series with Gub Neal's Ringside Studios. My name is Leon. Thank you very much. Justin.
Hello, thank you.
Hi.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks for
Hi,
being
everyone.
with us.
Good to be here. Good to see some familiar faces as well.
Cool. Okay, just admitting some more people here, so bear with me. So thanks a lot, Justin. We'll have some questions as well. So I don't know what format you'd like to take this in. If you just want to talk to us about your career, that would be great. And then we can have a Q&A afterwards, if that's cool with you.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably good to start at the beginning, really, which is the the beginning is I was a cinema obsessed kid in growing up in Birmingham. Didn't know anybody in the industry. Filmmaking was something that happened far away from me. So I didn't have any links or any kind of nepotistic kind of elements I could exploit in terms of getting into it. But I always knew that I loved cinema, and I had an Odeon at the top of my street, an old decrepit suburban Odeon at the top of my street in Sutton Coldfield, and which is still there actually. And loved going there and loved the experience. You know, everything from the ice cream ladies coming out as they did in those days to the bottom of the screen, so you could buy ice creams off them, to the way the curtains opened and closed, and the anticipation and the thrill of seeing light up on the big screen and sound. So it made a huge impression on me. You know, maybe 1970s Birmingham was somewhere you wanted to escape from a little bit as well, so that probably played into it somewhat. And seeing films like, you know, coming out like the original Star Wars and that kind of 80s cinema, you know, everything Back to the Future or whatever, just really inspired me, you know. And then you know, went to college, did a BTEC in media studies, just a BTEC national diploma, aged about 20, and started to realize that people did this for a career, and that I might be able to start making links to the industry. It's a very small industry in Birmingham. It's getting bigger, you know, but it's not. They've never had a massive kind of amount of stuff going on there. But in those days, we had Pebble Mill Studios, which was the BBC's Pebble Mill Studios, and I was lucky enough to go there and do work experience and get my foot in the door through doing this BTEC in national diploma. That led on to film school. And I applied for every film school. At the time, the big thing was working on film, you know, and I really wanted to work on film and make films which were could be shown in cinemas because it was before digital. So the best quality you could shoot was still cinema film. So applied to all of them, got turned down by all of them, but got on a reserve list for Portsmouth University. At that time, were working on film. I had old Clockwork Bolex 16mm cameras and an old Paraflex BL camera, you know, which would have been used for shooting the news. It probably shot the Queen's coronation, that camera actually, but we managed to I managed to get in there eventually, and despite really not coming from the sort of background that goes to university, I suppose, it was a struggle to at that time get in and get onto a course and get them to take me seriously as an undergraduate candidate. But you know, managed to do it and got in there, and then just really flourished there and realized what a social activity filmmaking was, and how you could really make friends and immerse yourself and have a great time, you know, while doing the job. Stressful, sure, but you know, I always think it's a really lovely and social activity. And part of that was getting to know some disabled friends at excuse me, at university, who got me involved and interested in the disability rights movement. And we're going back to sort of the early 90s now. So it was the time, and many of you will know from, you know, from studies, I'm sure, and from watching things like When Barbara Met Alan, that there were people chaining themselves to buses because they were inaccessible. There were people shutting down train services, etc. There was the storming of the ITV telethon, the whole Piss on Pity campaign. So it was a hugely politicized time for disabled people. It was also when Michael Oliver's book, The Politics of Disablement, came out, which was the book which sort of coined and really popularized in academic circles the idea of the social model of disability, that we are disabled by society rather than being a medical issue, that we have to be cured as disabled people. And this idea was pretty revolutionary at the time, you know, and a lot of the action that was going down was in response to this growing movement. And, you know, there was a huge disability arts movement. There was a lot of people making films. The Arts Council started funding artists' disability of film. And I met people who are still known now, who are really involved in the movement, but also involved in films, such as Matt Fraser, the thalidomide actor who you might have seen in things like His Dark Materials, for instance. He's a tremendous actor. People like Baroness Jane Campbell, who's now in the House of Lords, you know, she was part of the demonstrations back in the day. People like Liz Carr, who's the star of Silent Witness, you know, really prominent disabled actress. She also chained herself to buses, so etc. As I recall. So it was a really exciting time, and certainly met Barbara and Alan, who featured in the aforementioned program, you know, and were great activists at the time and really spearheaded a lot of that work. So the two went hand in hand, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. My development as a filmmaker and being able to get into the career doing that, but also the politics of disablement and what was going on at the time. And, you know, those protests were really successful and led to the Disability Discrimination Act of 1995, which increased a lot of the provision for disabled people. It wasn't perfect, but certainly it was revolutionary at the time. And it was really interesting that that direct action led to the establishment of the Act. You know, it really got things into the public consciousness, and it made me realize that, you know, protest does work, and you can make your voice heard, and it does change public opinion. And amongst the lawmakers as well. Excuse me. So so graduated from film school in the mid-90s and thought, well, what am I going to do now? And took pretty much every job I could, you know, which was not very well paid. Did a little bit of teaching, but also managed to scrabble together some money on credit cards to make a short film, which was called Large. And at the time, ITV were doing this short film scheme, and you know, there's still many short film schemes around and out there that you can apply for. Maybe we could talk a bit about them later, but at the time it was this thing called First Cut, and a lot of directors cut their teeth on it. People like Julian Kemp, Shane Meadows did one the year before I did a really good film called Where's the Money, Ronnie, that was nominated for a BAFTA. And what ITV would do was they would give you the money to make film. So I took my film to them, which by then was an assembly cut, and they said, we will give you back all the money because we really like this, and we'll give you the money to finish it off, and we're going to show it on ITV. And that was kind of my first big break, really, and paid off all the credit cards, thankfully, and got the film shown, and it showed quite widely, but it was my first proper short, and I felt I needed to do something else. So it showed at a lot of film festivals, etc. So I did this other short called Dirty Phone Calls, and I shot that for £500, which was from my paltry media lecturer's wages. I managed to cobble this budget together and got a bunch of short ends, which are the bits that they usually throw away after you've finished shooting your film. So short ends of 16mm film that managed to scrabble around and shot this film on it. It's called Dirty Phone Calls. And that did really well as a short, and played loads of festivals, won best film at the Birmingham Film Festival, actually, and a few other film festivals. And that really led on to my first feature film, which was an expanded version of the first short called Large. So Large was kind of a proof of concept for the feature. And then this second short gave me the impetus to get it off the ground. So I sent out the script to a bunch of producers for the feature version of Large. And it was the days before email, so I had to send out a printed copy of it, printed on my old Amstrad. If anybody remembers those Amstrad printers, dot matrix printers, takes about 3 days to print out a script. Anyway, got this thing out there, and my strategy was to put a day glow cover on the front, which kind of reflected the vibe and the themes of the film anyway, which was quite a crazy comedy. And I thought, well, somebody's can't ignore this on their desk. It's like got a Dago cover, you know, it's going to stand out. And sure enough, a producer called Alex Osborne got back to me. He's just made a film called The Acid House with Irvine Welsh, which had done really well and also won a few awards. And he rung me up and I said, I love this script. We're going to make this script. We might make this film. And sure enough, a year later, I was standing on set for my first feature film. This was probably about the year 2000, and there I was. We raised the money. Alex had raised the money from Film 4. He just backed his previous film, the Irvine Welsh film, The Acid House. We got some money at the time. It was a national lottery. The funding came through the Arts Council, and we had a big exec producer, Chris Orty, who produced things like The Last Emperor, which won 9 Oscars, etc. And he came on board as an exec. We got some regional money from Yorkshire. That's very much, as I'm sure a lot of you know, the way films are put together, you know, piecemeal from here and there, independent films. So we got, you know, third of the money from Film 4, third from the Arts Council film funds, and then the rest came from Yorkshire Media Production Agency, which was kind of European money basically, and then a little bit of money from a tax thing at the time called Sale and Leaseback, which sort of predated the current film tax credit. And yeah, made the film, shot it. It was an absolute baptism of fire, you know, and the film in itself, it was a teen comedy. It wasn't anything to do with disability, you know, and the lesson I learned from it was, you know, it's important to know what you want to make your film about. That's the most important thing. Getting the film made is one thing, and really anyone can get a film made, you know, if you work hard enough. But what is your film going to be about? And to me, the film was a little bit empty. And I think I came away ultimately saying, wow, this is an achievement, getting these major players to invest and back my film. But I wasn't happy with what the film was, you know, how it ended up. We had quite a painful experience in post where we showed it to test audiences because it's quite a commercial film. So it's tested far and wide, everywhere from Manchester to Surrey. And we had to reshoot the beginning and the end as a result of that, which was difficult to do, make lots of cuts. It's a weird process testing films, and if any of you have done it, or if you've been involved in that process at all, it's really, you know, you get these people, NRG, who are a big American company, and they come over and they do market research and essentially rip your film to shreds in front of an audience. So it's very painful. But anyway, the film came out. The release date was set for October 2001. We came out against Amélie, the French film, which is still a huge cult favorite, and American Pie 2, and which completely killed us at the box office. It totally cannibalized our audience, you know, the other films that were going on at the time. So, but then we came out on video and we did amazingly well. And this is how a lot of films back then were sold. You know, we did amazingly well on VHS, as it was then. DVD didn't really exist as a thing back then in commercial terms, you know. Although I think we did have some rental DVDs of it, and made a lot of money. We got to number 1 in the video charts. We sold countries all over the world, you know. So the film was kind of a commercial success, but I was left with this emptiness, you know, and it had been subject to a lot of commercial kind of pulling left, right, and centre with it, and wasn't happy with it. So I went back to what I loved about filmmaking, which was really being truthful and trying to say something, and made this short film with a bunch of young people, teenagers from Herefordshire, called Special People, which we got Film Council, as it was then, predates the BFI funding we have now, and they put money into this film. It's largely improvised and all disabled cast, about a filmmaker trying to make a community film with this bunch of disabled kids who just want to he think he's an idiot and want to make a completely different film to what he makes. So it really examined and scrutinized the filmmaking process as well. And it did really well, this short. You know, we played all over the place, everywhere from Trafalgar Square to the Sydney Opera House to Times Square. Won awards at Tribeca, won awards everywhere, you know, London Film Festival. And off the back of that, we got a feature film version of it off the ground, which was released in 2007. And it was a real moment for me, I think, making that film, because it made me realize, well, this is what filmmaking is really about, you know, and this is what it can do. And it made me invested in, you know, I invested in it, all of that knowledge and kind of passion I had for the disability rights movement, you know, and portraying disability in a different way. And the big thing we've always tried to do at 104 is to show disability, I call it, from the inside out rather than the outside in. And what I mean by that is, when you are non-disabled and you make a film, you're always going to be examining disability as a subject. But if you're a disabled person then you are always going to be seeing the world from a disabled perspective. And that's what we try to do at 104. So what did we do after that? Well, we were lucky enough to get a short film scheme, to be given governance of a short film scheme by the UK Film Council, which was very scary. Had to get interviewed by, one of my heroes, Alan Parker, who sadly died last year, but is a great film director who you know from films like Angel Heart and Birdie and Bugsy Malone, Midnight Express, fantastic filmmaker. And he interviewed us, gave us the funding for this scheme, which was, oh, sorry, I think, Jessie, do you mind putting yours on mute? Sorry, yeah, I'm getting...
Yeah, Jessie, anybody else there as well? If you can put yourself on mute, please.
Yeah. I just thought I want to go and do other stuff at the same time.
I'll just get a message, Jessie.
Maybe I will try and mute. I will mute her anyway. Okay.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, a bit of sonic bombardment. So yeah, we were given the money by great Alan Parker to make films with disabled directors, and it was the first time there'd been a scheme of this kind. It was called the Magic Hour, which was aimed specifically at disabled directors. And we had this amazing bunch of films come out of that. We had a film called Han Solo, which is made by the deaf director and writer team, Charlie Swinburne, William Major, which was about a deaf porn star, which was hilarious, sort of mockumentary. We had a film, part computer animation, which was called Paraphernalia, by director John Williams, which was about a boy who imagines his dialysis machine is a robot, and it comes to life. Really cool film. So, well, that was shortlisted for an Oscar, actually. So the scheme did really well, and we managed to get these disabled voices onto the screen, and then people came to approach us. And some of the films Jason mentioned in his intro have come out of that sense. We were approached by Damien Jones, who's a producer I knew, to come on board and kind of, more than anything, I think, lend a sort of seal of approval as a disabled-led film company on the film Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, starring Andy Serkis, Ray Winstone, Luke Evans, which was a big success for us because it went out into a lot of cinemas. And the film Notes on Blindness, which was a lovely film. I can say that because I didn't have a lot creatively to do with it, but that was the one that was nominated for 3 Oscars, which is about a guy called John Hull, who was an academic and theologian at Birmingham University who lost his sight, and it's a evocation as a documentary of his thoughts, feelings, and experiences as he went through that process. It's an incredible film. And other things, we sort of came on board during that time and still remained in kind of close contact with a lot of the filmmakers we worked with earlier, and started developing them through support from the now British Film Institute. I mean, the biggest struggle, I would say, is, we did a film like Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, and I said to Damien, the producer, on our first meeting, we have Andy Serkis playing a disabled character. He's playing Ian Jury, the punk rocker. He contracted polio when he was a child, and I remember him, as a kid watching Top of the Pops, thinking this guy's incredibly cool, and the disability was part of that. It's really good. But Andy is not disabled, and we got a lot of pushback actually from the producers. I said, well, I'm not just making my voice heard here. It is the voice of other disabled people who feel very strongly that disabled actors should play disabled roles, but they said, well, he comes as part of the package, he's helped develop it, it's happened. So, but the learning experience was that something I've taken on, was that you really need, from the inception of the project, you really need to have integrity and a disabled voice there, and the best projects and the best things I think we've been involved with do, and that is continuing to happen into the present, where one of the things we did on the BFI panel, which again Jason mentioned in the intro, which is the BFI started in 2018 a a panel, or all disabled panel, which would advise on anything to do with disability and film, would advise the BFI. And it's a great panel, made up of some extraordinary creatives and individuals. And one of the things we did was we set out a kind of 7 tenets of what we would like to see happen. And one of them was an end to cripping up in BFI funded productions. So the interesting thing is Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll would not be funded by the BFI now because it had a non-disabled lead actor playing a disabled role. So that's really interesting, and that just goes to show how much things have changed. And I think things continue to change exponentially. And I used to joke that I was just going on the same panels and talking about the same stuff year after year, for the past 25 years. But it really has changed now. And I think it's partly attitudinal. The fact that there's so many, especially younger people, identifying as disabled. Social media has played its part. Dear old Prince Harry talking about mental health issues, and bringing that and foregrounding it in the public conscience has really helped. Whatever we think of the monarchy, everybody's pretty benevolent towards them at the moment, I would say. But I know there are dissenting voices, but they certainly have helped to do that. And just the fact that we are managing to get more and more disabled people onto screen, Paralympics helped a great deal. Again, another controversial thing, but certainly helps foreground disability in the public conscience. And but I do think the biggest switch is attitudinal, and the fact that so many young people are saying, I am neurodiverse, I have mental health issues, and I'm not afraid to admit that in a way I would have been when I was at university many years ago, which I think is really cool. So here we are now. What do we do at 104 Films? I'll wrap up by saying some of the things I'm doing at the moment. As Jason was kind enough to mention, made a few films. Netflix have been good enough to buy them. I'm making a film at the moment, so I continue to do stuff which is not disability related. Which the main project I've got at the moment is the aforementioned Simon, which is a film about the relationship between Sid Vicious of the band the Sex Pistols and his mum, Anne Beverly, focusing on his mum. And it's starring Maxine Peake, who to me is a kind of screen goddess. I think she's incredible, both on screen and off screen, and or voicing her opinions in a very articulate way. She stars as Anne, and then playing the younger Anne is Morfydd Clark, who's currently Galadriel in The Rings of Power, who's again phenomenal actress, and very politically engaged and brilliant at portraying these sorts of characters. And then we have young Conrad Khan playing Sid, who's in the last series of Peaky Blinders playing Duke Shelby, Cillian Murphy's son, basically a legitimate son. He's a fantastic actor. So really excited about that. That looks like it's going to shoot in February, but as always with films, you never know until you're standing day one on set whether it's really going to happen. Fingers crossed it does. It's a complex production, but a lot of fun. Currently, 104 and me personally, I'm producing 4 films with disabled writers and directors, and they're incredible range of filmmakers. We shot one of them. We're shooting the other 3 next month in November. I can't say too much about it because I don't want to give the game away really, but I think they're really going to interest people in terms of the intersectionality and the way that we are representing gender, disability, race on screen, and I think a lot of that comes with being disabled. I always think is the experience of the outsider, and we have a lot in common with other protected characteristics, and that's what these films definitely do. And on those, we are looking for 20% disabled crew and cast across the board. We've just cast one of the films fully, the next one we're doing, and that's 100% disabled cast. So in that, we even have disabled actors playing non-disabled roles, which is really, really interesting. We have done a bit of that before, but I think that's increasingly the way forward, and I think that's a really good conversation to be having for all casting directors and all casting, not just on our disability films. Why can't disabled people play non-disabled roles? I should say that the directors working on that as well are across a range of disabilities, mental health. We have wheelchair users, sensory disabilities. So it is a broad spread and broad spectrum range of experiences. The other thing I'd like to talk about a little bit is just at 104, we do a lot of training as well and advocacy. So as well as sitting on the panels and speaking to people like Netflix and BBC, etc., about disability and best provision for disability, we do a lot of training, and which is largely funded by Screen Skills, who are the sector training body for the film and TV industries, and they fund a lot of our work. So currently we're running a training program for digital map painters, for instance. Part of that will be placements. So I don't know, maybe some people in this audience might be interested in that. The deadline is coming up pretty soon, I think, and we're running that in October. But that's the latest one. We've run courses for post-production supervisors, for camera assistants, for editors, for writers and directors. We did one this year for, producers and directors this year, which is great. We also work with Film London to develop short film projects before they're submitted to Film London. And I'm happy to say one of the ones that we worked on a couple of years ago is premiering at the London Film Festival. It's called My Eyes Are Up Here, written by a disabled director called Aminda Verdi, and with an extraordinary disabled actress whose name I can't remember, but she's great. She's from America. She stars, and it's going to be playing on October the 5th at the London Film Festival. So I urge you to get tickets for that if you're interested. So we do that every year for Film London as well. So London-based people can sort of get in touch, and I think we'll be doing that again next year. We just had a really good bunch of films going through this year, so fingers crossed we'll get a few made then. What else do we do? Yes, and Film Academy as well, which is the BFI's training program. Some of the kind of younger people who might be in the audience, that's for 16 to 20-year-olds, and we run Film Academy in Birmingham and Cambridge, and it's a program to get people making their first short films, backed by industry professionals. So we bring in camera person, sound person, script editor, producers, etc., to come in and give talks, and then they're supported during the post-production process as well, which is a really fun thing to do. So yeah, that's me really. I suppose that 50% of the time is spent making programs and films, which are my own thing, my own gig, and then the other 50% of the time is spent at 104 Films, pushing the agenda and trying to continue to push things forward. I would say I feel really positive about it now, and I think obviously everybody has different experiences and might have had good and bad experiences, but I think there's never been a better time to be a disabled talent and to be out there plying your trade and trying to get work. There is some really, really good opportunities out there. So yeah, thanks, Jason. That's a whistle-stop tour where I've been chatting for a long time. So it'd be nice to, hear some questions, I suppose.
That's great, Justin. Thanks so much. That's perfect. Really, really wonderful to hear about your career. And it's really inspirational, really positive. You ended on that. Never been a better time. That's really, really good of you. Thanks so much for that. So yeah, we've got time for questions now. If people got questions for Justin, just let us know. Anyone got any questions? I will unmute people, or you can unmute yourself as well. Remember that if you want to ask a question, and turn the camera on as well. That would be good. So yeah, anyone want to kick off? Okay, Leshu.
Okay. I don't know if I'm visible yet. I
Yeah,
can't see.
yeah, I can see you.
Yeah, and then maybe you see the mess of my home. Sorry about that. I want to thank you so much for this event, and also to Justin, thank you so much. This has been really exciting to hear about. I would like to know a bit more about what kind of ability there is for supporting people with disabilities in production, not just the on-screen talent or the stories, but what goes in, you know, how things can be made more accessible, because we were just talking about or thinking about the social model of disability, and it really is about accessibility. What kind of support, what kind of mechanisms are in place? And I mean, just on some notes, I could think about how filmmaking itself is often sort of lauded as a very tough, busy, you know, business with, you know, the productions are 12 hours at least, several days a week. This is not feasible for a lot of people, or those with disabilities, those who have to go to hospital for a treatment, something like this. And I'm just wondering, what's going into the business now to enable that, or what's going into film schools now to aid people, and not, you know, with a host of disabilities. So I guess that's sort of what I've been thinking about now. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, I think it's something which is happening at the moment. You might have heard of something which was launched on December the 3rd, International Day of Disabled People, last year, December the 3rd, which was called Underlying Health Condition. And it's kind of a industry pressure group. And the idea is to create better access on film sets, because access is pretty terrible on many film sets. For example, there are only 2 accessible Winnebagos, you know, in the whole country, with disabled these two disabled honey wagons, you know, toilet spaces, portable toilets. So the idea that Underlying Health Condition had is to have an accessibility coordinator, an AC, on every single set. And it's a fledgling role. It's not a lot of stuff has been worked on yet about this, and that would be paid for by an industry levy. And also that industry levy would pay for a pot of money, which would be accessibility for accessibility, for meeting crew reasonable adjustments on set. So that's really interesting, because I mean the architects of Underlying Health Condition would say it's all about access, you know, and I think it is about access. I think it's attitudinal as well, but the hard fact is that some disabled people just cannot get on set and cannot function to do their jobs on set. So so what they're trying to do is really good. You know, I think the industry are listening to an extent, but they haven't done it yet. But if there was a levy, for example, Screen Skills, who I mentioned before, the sector training body, they have a levy on every film that's made, or every film or TV program, which I think is 0.05% of a budget or something, and they have to contribute to this pot of money, and that pays for training within the industry. And it would be a similar thing to that. So I think that's a really good idea. And I have to say, I've never worked on a set with an AC, with an accessibility coordinator. It's just not something I've been able to do before. I think it's because it's a fledgling role and there aren't many people about, but there are some really good people about now. You know, like Dan Edge is doing accessibility coordinating, Julie Fernandez through her company. So on the Film 4 shorts we're working on at the moment, we will have a accessibility coordinator across all of the shorts. And there'll be somebody there who will do a access assessment with each individual, and then see through on production, and ensure that, you know, sure, we've got an accessible bathroom for this cast member who has to travel in the hotel, you know, but does it have a seat in it? You know, no, it's just got rails, you know, so therefore they're going to be on the floor if you're a wheelchair user, you know, things like that, that a production manager might just not know. They think they've got an accessible room and they've rented that for their cast or crew member who has a disability, but you really need somebody who's really on it with this stuff. And the other thing we always say at 104 as well is there's no one size fits all when it comes to access. You know, you really you need to be really holistic in your approach, because disability is complex. People have a range of disabilities, a combination of disabilities. For instance, mental health and deafness quite often go together, so you have to be aware of that, and it's how you do that. And there are certain lots of things you can do on set. Just from the off, and I think all sets should have quiet spaces, should have quiet rooms for people with mental health issues. If there's a BSL user, you have a BSL interpreter, obviously, but also things like a lot of BSL users lip read. And I was directing something actually for the BBC, and I asked for the director of photography, the script supervisor, and the first assistant director, the people I'd be working, because I'm hard of hearing, I should say, to have clear masks so that they could lip read. And they did it first, actually. They stopped wearing them after a bit, but yeah, typical. I mean, that's another issue with non-visible disabilities, but things like that, having transparent masks on set, you can get really good disposable masks now with transparent windows in them. Little things like that, and it's evolving and changing all the time, and people are getting used to best practice. So yeah, I think the answer is to have an access coordinator early on in pre-production. As crew come on, they do those assessments, and then they stay with us. And hey, it saves money. That's my, I was putting this to Channel 4 this morning, that it saves money if you, for instance, we cast a deaf actor in one of these films, and he's going to need 2 BSL interpreters, because you need 2, right? You can't just have one for the day because they get tired, so they have to spell each other. So that's like £500 a day at least, and they're probably charging overtime because it's a full shoot day, 11 hours. So it's going to be expensive, right? But I know that he could probably get that support he needs from Access to Work, which is, as sure a lot of you know, the government's scheme for supporting disabled people into work and giving them money so they can meet their reasonable adjustments. But it takes time to do that. So I know that we're shooting that film in, say, 2 months' time. I think it is, a little under, say, 7 weeks. But it's probably going to take him a month to get the money from Access to Work. Now, if we waited until much later and the access coordinator wasn't there helping him do that application, get the money in from Access to Work, then the production would have to pay for that. And that could be like, easily be £5,000 on top, added to the budget. So, it saves money. And it's good for everyone. It's not just good for disabled people, it's good for, single mothers, single parents who work, for all kinds of people, the elderly, a lot more elderly crew working on films nowadays, which I think is great. All the protected characteristics under the Equalities Act benefit from it.
That's great. Thanks for that. There's a few points made here in the chat here about, does the industry need to do more on supporting mental health in both production and on set? And if so, how do you think they could? I know that, I think it's the Film and TV Charity have a call sheet where mental health is taken into consideration. And if you're interested in that, look at the charity, because on there you see people from, you remember, I think it was just before last Christmas, there was a new version of Wurzel Gummidge, and they used that on that to do with mental health on the call sheet. And it's good because I think it's the producer, you see her talking about that in terms of mental health, and and how it helped everybody on that great production. You got any thoughts on that in terms of supporting people with mental health there in the chat?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of productions now, I think the Netflix productions are having wellbeing advisors as standard on the crew. We won't on these films just because we've got the access coordinator and they double up as a mental health first aider. But every set should have a mental health first aider, because sets are pressure cookers. It's such a stressful environment. You work in very long hours. You can be really criticized for your role. I've had really extreme moments of anxiety on set, and you have to respond to that and realize that there are going to be any given time, there are going to be people with mental health issues and having episodes on that set. So yeah, first up, I think mental health first aider should be at least one at all times. It's usually the first assistant director. We have an access coordinator who's also a qualified mental health first aider. There's a course run by, is it Mind, I think. They train mental health first aiders. They have brilliant course, and they do a huge turnover of people, you know, and it's pretty reasonable to do, you know. So even on like student films and things like that, you know, I think somebody should do the course, you know. Maybe get the university to pay for it. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but you know, but I think it's a really key thing to have on set. Wellbeing officer, if you can afford it. But what's more important than anything, I think, is in terms of mental health, is creating a convivial and conducive atmosphere on set to making a good film. You know, everybody knows that, or television program, they know that they're making something really good. The pressure isn't there because you've created a nice atmosphere as opposed to one which is a pressure cooker. And we all know about toxic attitudes. And again, this is an attitudinal thing that these directors, and they sort of know who they are. I can't mention them because they're recorded, but there are some very big characters in this industry of ours who are still working at high level, who are horrible people, you know? And they've got to realise that, and they've got to move with the times and realise that people won't put up with this behaviour anymore, and you shouldn't have to put up with it. You know? So that's what I would say. Those are my kind of top things in terms of mental health. As somebody who's, you know, had a panic attack on set before, you know, and it can be a horrific atmosphere. One of the things that really helped me personally, and everybody's different, I know, but one of the things that helped me personally is knowing that, like when I had anxiety attack on the set of Large, which was my first film back in 2000, I was late for the shoot, you know, and I had to make up excuses and all that. But now it would be completely accepted. But I know that if I told the truth, the Bond company, who are the people who insure the film essentially and make sure that it gets made, no matter what, would probably just come in and fired me, you know, and said, "Oh, you can't handle it. We'll get another director to finish off the shoot." And that wouldn't happen now. You'd be able to sue them, you know. It just wouldn't happen. So times have changed, and that's a good thing. And knowing that you can come up, you know, to a trusted individual on set, being a wellbeing advisor or your mental health first aider, your first AD, or access coordinator, and say, you know, I'm having a hard time and talking to them is an accepted thing, and it's happening on sets all over the place now. You're not alone.
That's really good to know, actually, that times have changed. I think we got 3 hands up. Should we go we could take that in terms of what I can see in the gallery here in order. Should we go for Ushiku, then Jeffrey, and then Maritz, if that's okay? Ushiku.
Yeah.
Can I be really rude and jump in briefly? I'm not going to ask my question because I've got to go.
Okay.
You will get your
Jeffrey.
question. I've got to go in. I only had an hour lunch break, so I apologise. Okay. I'm going to come off the call in 2 secs. I just wanted to thank Justin really briefly for doing this talk, and I wish I could stay to the end, but I can't. And the 12-hour day definitely is my biggest pet peeve, so I'm really glad that got brought up. I'm also going to drop you a PM, Justin, if that's okay. I sent you an email a few months back. You did respond to me, which is absolutely amazing. I really appreciated it. I'm going to drop that PM to you if that's okay, because I don't want to bother the chat with it. It's to do with a project of mine.
Sure.
But thank you so much. Yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you. And I wish I could stay, but I'll let Yuzuki get on with his question now. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Hope to see you soon.
See you, Jeffrey.
Care.
Cool. So yeah, one of the things I've recently been interested in is the idea of inter-accessibility. So particularly when you're kind of portraying a certain disability on screen, how that also is made more accessible in terms of audio descriptive elements or subtitling, stuff like that. And just how to generally express one person's experience in one way, yet still convey it in ways that can be experienced. So, for example, I'm really into Netflix's Atypical, and when Sam is going through sensory overload, or when he's kind of repeating one particular word because it's kind of got stuck in his head, the word twat in the first episode. Like it really kind of portrays like his inner experience, but then they also visualize it. And I'm interested if there's any other shows that do that well, or if there's much that you've experienced in your own career in terms of interaccessibility and how to kind of portray one disability yet still kind of have allyship to the whole community, so everyone can kind of come together on a shared journey, even if the subject matter is just one particular disability.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a universality to the disabled experience, but at the same time, it's very specific, isn't it, to that person's disability? You know, and I like to think some of the some of the best work we've done is about how disabled people see the world and how you represent that on film. You know, and then it gets into the question really of what is disability cinema? You know, is there such a thing as a set of rules or a set of characteristics, I should say, which are about disabled representation? I think there probably aren't yet, just because of the diversity within disability, you know, and the fact that a visually impaired person's life experience is very different to that of a, you know, a life limited person or that of a wheelchair user. You know, it's really difficult to represent. And, you know, you get a lot of gimmicky stuff, I find, which is, I don't know, we're going to put the camera on a wheelchair so we can see it from, you know, which is great, you know, and I've done a lot of those kind of things before. But really, that's less important to me. It's more about how you see the world, not where you're seeing it from, you know, but how you see the world and experience the world because of the way the world is talking to you. And I think, for me, I think that's the commonality that we have as disabled people. You know, it's that sense of difference, actually. And I mean, I talk about my work being separated, you know, between the 104 Films work and the narrative films that I make, but actually there's a correlation there, because you inevitably you do see the world in a certain way if you have a disability. And you know, I feel like culture survives and thrives on the fringes, and you know, in order to make great and interesting work, we have to, you know, give voice to voices like ours as a culture and a society. But I don't know what that is. I don't know. Over to you, Ashiko. You know, I mean, I think it's who knows, because everybody sees, all of us see the world in a different way. Interestingly, I've never made a film about my hearing. You know, I've never made a film about. I've made films with culturally deaf people, you know, BSL users, but I am not a BSL user. You know, but there always say there's like, I don't know, we call it like the big three sort of culturally deaf people. And this is what people think of when they think of disability: culturally deaf people, people who are visually impaired, and mobility, wheelchair users, etc. But that's only 30%. So the other 70% are mental health issues, the hard of hearing, massive group, hard of hearing, combinations of the above, you know, learning disabilities, etc. And that often gets written out of the conversation, you know. So how do those people see the world, you know? It's an interesting thing to explore.
Great, thanks a lot. That's brilliant. So Moritz, I think's next, and then Madhavi.
Hey, nice to see you again, Justin. We actually had the talk at the university together about a year ago. So yeah, thank you so much for that again. But I wanted to ask what things are coming up for directors at 104 in the future, if you have anything planned. And as a side step from that, I'm currently doing a disability campaign, or starting one, for Directors UK, and wanted to shoot you a message about that, if that's fine, if I reach out to you. I think I still have your email address, if that's fine. I just wanted to check with you first.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, please do on the Directors UK thing. I mean, we have you know, been in touch with them over the years, you know, go back to sort of Adrian Chown's day, you know, sort of met with him recently actually as well. But yeah, it'd be great, because we haven't done anything with them for a little while now. but so please do. Sorry, what was the other part of your question? I've sort of lost my track.
If you have anything
schemes coming
or
up,
directors that want for in the future.
Yeah, well, we ran a scheme this year funded by Screen Skills, what we call CPD funding, continual professional development, and it was for people who done pretty good shorts, had some festival exposure, maybe even low budget feature, bit of telly, who were moving on to doing their first feature films, and we got them in the room with Netflix UK Film, with BFI, Mia Bays at the BFI, and with Film 4, Max Park at Film 4. So we were able to put these projects ahead of them. It was hugely oversubscribed. I think we had about something like 60, 70 applications for about 6 places in the end. So there's clearly a big demand for it. So it's a really good question, and I've put that to Screen Skills. That we need to run this again. It's just not enough to just do this as a one-off, and there's a real need. And we're slightly at the sway of sort of our funders really, and the people who may or may not think it's important to do this kind of work. So that's really where we are with that. We're lobbying them. We hope to do that again. I think it'd be brilliant to do it again. And sort of Netflix, Film 4, BFI are all up for it as well. So it'd be fingers crossed. Watch this space on that one. We might have something. Who knows? Next year when they do the next round of CPD funding early next year, we might be able to convince them to do that. But I've certainly put the case very robustly. In terms of other opportunities, I mean, we've just done we've selected all the filmmakers now for the Film 4 shorts, all the directors, so that's kind of a done thing. I don't know whether it will go ahead again. I don't think it will. It'll probably go ahead in some other form, because they did a similar scheme last year for ethnically diverse filmmakers, and which is really good, which is all Afrofuturism sort of vibe to it. And so they might do something else next year, but I certainly think Film 4 are right behind it, and I think it's a good time as well, because Film 4, what's going to happen with everybody's forgot about politics this week, but I know, but we've got a new Prime Minister, new Culture Secretary. Are Film 4 still going to have their backs to the wall, and are they going to need to bolster their public service remit? And it looks good if they're working on disability projects, so that's good. So they're doing a thing at Channel 4 called 4 Access, which you might want to look up. They're running sort of short courses for people, which I think includes directors and writers, and they can then link them to Channel 4 shows. Yeah, so have a look at that. What else are we doing? We continue to work with Film London. We haven't had the go ahead for next year, but usually we get a chance to develop filmmakers with them if you're based in the London area. And it's quite a wide catchment area, sort of 10 million people or so, and the idea is we sort of do sessions with people preparing their applications, and with Film London come in, the execs from there come in, and because they just weren't getting enough applications from disabled directors. So that's a really good thing to keep an eye on our website with. There's a section on the Film London stuff, and I hope to be doing that again next year. What else are we doing? I would say that's probably it for people sort of over 18. We've got the younger people stuff we're doing thing in Birmingham, Cambridge, but yeah, it's a tricky one, because hey, everybody wants to be a director. That is one of the hard things, and it seems like it's one of the hardest things to get funded. I know the BFI, I think their opinion is, which I completely understand really, is that there doesn't need to be a specifically targeted strand for disabled filmmakers anymore, because we should be given disabled filmmakers funding from the regular funding pots. I suppose my argument is like that. Well, there's just such a dearth of disabled filmmakers. In historic BFI reports going back not that far, there were 0% of the directors were disabled who were funded.
Yeah, they're not great.
Yeah, so I think there is an argument for some targeted intervention there, which we continue to ask for. And I'm becoming chair of the group now, the Disability Advisory Panel, and looking forward to arguing that robustly. That we should be doing more targeted intervention, and they should put some of the shorts funding, especially towards ring fence that for disabled directors. As always, you know, the part of the problem is it's one-off funding. You know, it's project by project funding, but that is the nature of our industry as well. Sadly, you know, and I make a film, and then, you know, you're back to square one on the next film, really. And weirdly, I think it's the same for a lot of people, really. You know, if Danny Boyle, you know, spoken to him about this, he says it's always hard getting the next film off the ground. You know, certain films say it might be easy to get off the ground because it's a bit of a surefire hit, you know, but the film that you really wants to get off the ground is the hard one, you know. And I think so. If it's the same with people at really high level, you know, it's just project by project work, and that's not to do with being disabled. That's just the nature of our industry, and that's the way it works, sadly. But yeah, I hope that, I mean, what I could talk about a little bit, if it's helpful as well, is other opportunities out there, you know, outside of 104. There's, of course, deaf and disabled people in film and TV, which all disabled film and TV makers should be signed up for, because loads of opportunities come through that. There's also BBC Writers' Room are great, you know, and they did The Break a couple of years ago, the shorts program for disabled directors and writers. Then there are also DANC, you know, Triple C database. They often have opportunities on there for people coming up in the industry and sometimes directing kind of initiatives. So keep an eye on all of those. Disability Arts Online as well. Not a lot of people in our industry think about that, but that's pretty good. And there's a huge database. It's like 20,000 subscribers or something. And they often post things to do with film on there. So that's another one to take a note of if, you know, if you're interested in those opportunities. So there's stuff. BBC are pretty open at the moment as well, I would say, to new directors with disabilities coming in. They ran the BBC Elevate program last year, which I think has come to an end now. I don't know if it's going ahead again, but that's really useful as well in terms of getting people in as directors.
That's great.
Thank you so
really,
much.
really positive. Davi, do you want to ask your question now?
Yes. Justin, it's great to hear from you. I am a person with a disability. I'm a wheelchair user. So through our not-for-profit organization, we are organizing acting course for persons with disabilities in partnership with Film and Television National Level Institute in India. It's a government body. Even for them also, it's first time when we organized our previous batch for persons with mobility related challenges. Now we are planning for our deaf and hard of hearing people, second batch we are planning. So in India, frankly speaking, it's very in the basic level. So a few people just somehow got opportunity to act in movies or to play some other roles. But there is no proper way to train people and take them to the industry like that. So now through our not-for-profit in collaboration with the government, we started this initiative. So now when I'm hearing from you about this accessibility coordinators, well-being advisors, all those things, I like that such type of best practices are there. So how can I know more about more such practices? Any document is available? Because funding is a challenge, like all of us right now discussing, right? So for us to make films right now, we don't have that much funding support. So our idea is to create more awareness about these things in the film industry, either directors or producers. So these are the best practices available, because nobody is having any proper idea how to include persons with disabilities. Everybody thinks that they don't have any training. I have to spend a lot of time in training them. I need to find accessible locations. That will be additional cost for me. Why should I take up this headache? So that type of attitude most of the people will have. So to change that mindset, to tell them these are the best practices in other countries, it is available. So do we have any such type of useful document? do you have any other suggestions for us? Because we are in the very, very basic level. We are starting, we started our baby steps in this area. So
I mean,
like
what I would
hear.
say is it's still very much a fledgling role in the UK industry, you know, and in the US, but it is increasing in popularity and people recognize the need much more now. So it's a work in progress, but there are a few things you could check out actually. One of them is an organization called the 1 in 4 Coalition. They were in the United States, and they came up with the whole idea of the accessibility coordinator. And they're 1 in 4. They're always getting confused with my company, 104, but they're 1 in 4. And I would check them out. Just give them a Google. There's also Julie Fernandez and her company. His name I can't remember actually, but I should do because she's working for us. But let me just get that up. Julie. Yeah, here we are. So that's she's what they call a disability creative consultant. I don't think she's got a. Is it juliefernandez.com? Yeah. Let me put that into the chat.
Yeah, that will be great.
I can't guarantee my spelling, but juliefernandez.com. I believe that is it. Yeah, and the one. Oh, sorry, I just send this to everyone. Yeah, that's it. And then the 1 in 4 coalition. I don't know how much of a presence underlying health condition the pressure group I mentioned earlier have, but I'll certainly put their name in and worth a Google, you know. Condition. The guy behind that is a guy called Jack Thorne, who's a sort of writer of television. So yeah, I'm sure if you Google that, it'll come up with some information, and that's probably a good place to start. There's also a guy called Dan Edge who does this. He's an actor, but for some reason a lot of them seem to be actors who is disabled, and he's doing some. I believe he's doing some accessibility coordinating. And the other thing, if you do get in touch with Julie is running a course funded by Screen Skills. There goes Screen Skills again. But Screen Skills have funded this course to train 10 accessibility coordinators to go out into the industry. And she's working with another quite high up producer. I can't remember his name, I don't recall. They're running the course together. But it'd be interesting perhaps for you to get in touch with them, you know, and who knows?
Be great.
They could do a kind of visit to India to do some training, perhaps.
Yes, that will be great. We can train some people and we can connect them with the industry. So, yes.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That's great. I just had a question myself, actually, Justin, if that's okay. You know, you mentioned a film that you've been working on where you have disabled actors playing non-disabled parts. You want to say just a bit more about that? Because that came up in terms of John Sailing, who is the inclusion officer for the Writers Guild. And so, yeah, he was talking about that previously. Yeah, do you want to say a bit more about that? I think that's really interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, my good friend David Proud is a disabled actor. You know, he's in EastEnders for many years and was sort of the first disabled regular in that. He puts it very eloquently and accurately, which is, you know, there should be a quota. So if you have a non-disabled actor playing a disabled role, then you should have, if it's a lead actor, then you have 2 supporting characters who are disabled. You know, so you balance it out. There's kind of a quota, and I think that's a good way forward, really, because there is the argument that some non-disabled actors are really good. Maybe they could play disabled roles, but the fact is, at the minute, they're taking the roles from disabled people, and there's no way of getting the disabled performers in because all the roles are being taken by non-disabled actors. So So I think that's kind of the way forward, really, is to say, right, you know, it's like being carbon neutral, right? You know, you have to balance it, and it's the same with disabled performers in films. And then really these people, these naysayers who say, oh well, that's ridiculous, if you're a policeman in the films, you have to be played by a policeman in real life, and all these people, you know, who go on like that, then I think they haven't really got a leg to stand on, have they? So that's really, you know, the best way of going about it. But I did a film with David as well, where his lead character was non-disabled, but he'd broken both legs, a bit like James Stewart in Rear Window, you know. Oh, yeah. And so he had his legs in plaster, so there's no way that you knew whether he was disabled or not. You know, it just worked. And I think it's getting clever little opportunities for roles to work like that. And there was a scene where he has the accident where he breaks his legs, but then we had a body double playing him, you know, because there were some scenes where he had to be walking. David's a wheelchair user, so we made it work. You know, there's all sorts of ways to make it work, and there's CGI as well, not just body doubles. You know, you can do all kinds of stuff. And I know David is really keen on that, because why should it limit you to playing disabled characters if you have a disability? And also the whole blind casting argument is really good. You know, we see lots of actors of color now playing roles in big dramas, and why can't we do that with disability? You know, it makes perfect sense to me. That's the next thing we as an industry should be focusing on, really, because look at the great strides that we've made in sort of people of color on the screen, you know. And it's true, whenever I have conversations about casting now, it's like, well, this cast is too white, you know. And it should be the same with disability, I think.
Great. Yeah, definitely. I know there's comments coming fast and furious in the chat here. Does anyone want to bring that into the discussion here? I can read stuff out. Or has anyone got any further questions? There was a point by Evil Film.
But me, can I pipe in?
Yeah, go for it, Gregory.
I'm trying to be an aspiring animator, not right away, but illustrator as well. Just trying to get into that. It seems very hard to break in. It seems, and also we have the rise of artificial intelligence with illustration. You heard of that? There's like an illustrated picture done by AI that won a prize. That's troubling for creators in general, not just with that. But if it sort of like, you know, eats our lunch, instead of being used as a companion, a force multiplier, it gets abused by the corporate system to replace people. That's my big worry for the next 10, 20 years.
You're right, yeah. Who knows where it's going to end? That's the thing. I mean, I like to think we're all unique, but you know, it'd be bad if disabled people are up against machines as well as other humans. You know, who don't want to give them jobs. So yeah, it's a good point, Gregory.
And it's the same with screenwriting as well. Like screenwriters being usurped by machines, obviously, yeah, fitting some kind of algorithm, like you said before, Justin, to fit a certain audience to commercialize things. Yeah, I mean that's ongoing, isn't it? That's happening right now.
It's either be a companion for small individuals or small organizations, or just be used by the corporates, and the system, it can't sustain itself, it can't pay people, and it just unravels. You just end up with even more products, even more soulless than today's. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You know, people just protest and stop engaging and contributing.
It's true.
That's what I think will happen if it reaches its logical conclusion. If it's not used as a force multiplier or companion, but instead a unnecessary layer of competition that starves people of oxygen.
I suppose there's the other argument as well, that technology helps facilitate disability.
Yeah. I'm just saying you help. I'm just saying a companion, the help. We don't want to use it to kill the soul of creativity.
Yeah. it's got to be an extension, hasn't it? It's got to be a tool, really. Yeah.
Mm.
Thanks for that. Jessie, have you got a question?
I don't have a question right now because my son has just asked me a question and I have to answer. I'm really sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry.
Alex, I don't know whether you want, I can read out your point here. I don't know whether you want to come into the discussion here. You put on here, do you feel
Going from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so
sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Thursday
Alex.
night, Friday night.
Jesse, do you want to turn your audio
nights.
off? Sorry, I'll do that. Yeah, go
on. Sorry, who's is it Jesse or
go for it, Alex?
Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. There have been basically I feel that one barrier that most disabled people often face is often the interview processes. For example, with regards to autistic people, which is often regarded as a invisible disability, sometimes they may misinterpret social cues or misinterpret questions at times, and as a result could lead to a misunderstanding from the employer during the interview processes, and unfortunately that's that's pretty much the same for any other job in particular, because currently the employment rate of autistic people is 23% in this country, and that's not even close to an improvement. And I myself have been unfortunately discriminated, in an interview for a television scheme, which I'm not going to mention by name, due to the lack of adjustments in place for the second stage. So do you feel that interview processes is something that needs to change for disabled people?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's, first of all, sorry to hear about that, the opportunity and not getting through to the next round. It seems really bad, actually. Sadly, Alex, it doesn't surprise me, though, because I think there is not enough provision, especially for neurodiverse people. I think there are lots of things we could put in place. I think it is good to be honest with people as well. I'm sure you were, so this is not at all as a criticism of you, but I think if you are neurodiverse, it's worth making that known to potential employers. There's one thing I'd like to direct you to as well, which is Channel 4, which I contributed to, have produced a set of guidelines on recruiting staff, which includes all sort of guidelines on interviewing. And it might be interesting to have a look at that, because it includes neurodiverse people in that, and working with neurodiverse people and recruiting people from neurodiverse community. So I haven't got it, but I could certainly email it to Jason. I haven't got the link now, but the Channel 4 guidelines are actually really good, and it's a shame, that the people you encountered hadn't read these guidelines, or if they hadn't taken them to heart, but it is a huge problem. I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? And I was having this very conversation with Julie Fernandez this morning, the aforementioned access coordinator, because it's good to be honest, and you want to be honest up front, especially if you have a non-visible disability. But then how are they going to receive that, and when do you declare it? And one of the things that comes up a lot, you might have heard of access riders or access passports. Some of you may have heard of that, which is, that's sometimes people will ask for that if you have a disability and you come to interview for a role. And what myself and Julie are now thinking is, and it will say things like, I need a quiet space on set, I need noise cancelling headphones, I need to be able to wear those if the atmosphere gets too hectic on set, etc. Just little things like that. And so the Access Passport will have a list of all these requirements, you know. And yes, they're a good thing, but you've got to choose where, and it's a value judgment on who you're being interviewed by or who you're working with. When you declare that and when you show them that Access Passport or that Access Rider, you know, it sounds like on this occasion it might have been good to show it to them ahead of the interview, you know, but it's a hard judgment to make, you know, because I sometimes advise people get in there, get the job, and then give them the Access Passport, you know, and then give them the list of requirements that you might need. So it's a really, really difficult equation to get right, and I can't really advise. You know, it's what's best for you as an individual.
It is hard, isn't it? I don't know what the law is at the moment. I know in the past, if you had certain number of employees, you had had to have 13% of your workforce as disabled, or was that just a target? Because I remember recently I went to this online webinar which had the inclusion person from Channel 4 there, and she said I think it was to a question, yeah, don't declare before the interview. And I did think, well, wow, you know, it's like, this is an event about disability, and this is coming from Channel 4, which is the most sort of disability progressive channel, one could argue. And even she was saying that. So was she talking about that in terms of schemes at Channel 4 as well? I mean, that is interesting. Yeah.
I mean, sadly, that's the world that disabled people are kind of navigating at the moment, you know, and things will change, hopefully, you know, and people become more. I mean, I think there's a bit of a mystery about disability as well that a lot of producers or execs might have. They don't really understand or get disability. A lot of them don't have experience of disabled people in their day-to-day lives, and there are a lot of assumptions or sort of fear. They have a fear of saying things wrong, which can be founded actually, because sometimes, you know, you can get real bite back from very militant disabled people, you know, which can be a problem as well.
That's interesting. I mean, you mentioned before about being on set, and I mean, this is often a tangent a bit, but you know, the high pressure nature of it, and people have talked about, yeah, changing work patterns perhaps, and Terry Bamber, who's working with us on this British Academy project, he's had stories about that. And so if people look on the website for this project, you'll see him talking. But I just wondered, because it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I'm coming from an academic context where things like bullying, it's, you know, difficult to state what that is. And, you know, this is more of a philosophical point, but I might take something as being bullied, whereas you might not, right? And that might be because you're used to these things on set and so on. I just wondered whether you wanted to elaborate a bit on that, because it is a minefield, isn't it? And if you've got different well-being advisors, I suppose I'm interested in, they can advise people on spaces or advise people, you know, maybe to do with mental health. But in terms of intervention, that whole area, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
I think part of the problem is it's still a fledgling role, and everybody seems to be doing things in different ways, and we're all kind of learning on the job. And again, it's just the diversity of disability. There's no one size fits all approach to access, and I think that's really one of the particular issues about disability as opposed to other protected characteristics under that Equality Act. You know, it's really difficult to know what some person, you know, might be some person's cure is some person's poison, you know. Yeah. And I think you come up against that a lot. And I think, again, it's all about time. Time is the biggest access consideration, I think, you know. And if you've got time, we one of the directors we've been working with is neurodiverse, you know, and they've had a bit more time in their schedule, just so that they've got more time and they don't have as much stress on them to get things done in timely fashion. So I think, yeah, time is key, but time is money, you know, and it's this is a reason why we shoot you know, 11-hour days with 1 hour for lunch, and then you're often there 2 hours before setting up, and then you're de-rigging at the end of the day for an hour, because it's a huge expensive machine. You know, it's very hard to convince our industry that they should allow us more time to do everything.
Thanks for that. There might be a legacy, Anne Madavi. Should we go to Gavin? Gavin, you got a question?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks very much for an exceptional talk so far, Justin. Been some really interesting stuff.
Thank you.
There. I just wanted to pick up on what you were saying about, or what everyone was saying about, do you declare your, well, in my case, it's a mental health condition, a serious mental health condition, at job interview. And a point I made, I've written something called Anything to Declare on Jason's blog on his website, which is about whether you declare your mental health condition. And my experience of that has been that in jobs I've applied for, which is a screenwriter on a film about borderline personality disorder, director of mental health charity Mind, and working in mental health support at Derby College, was all of those interviews, I didn't just declare it, I emphasised it as equipping me with creative abilities, personal experience, and qualities that can't be learned in a classroom. So rather than just say, in spite of my mental health condition, offer me the job, I said, you should offer me the job because I have a mental health condition that gives me hidden qualities that other people don't possess, particularly a creative skill set, which comes with borderline personality disorder, which is a condition I've got. Often the overactive limbic system can lend that person a certain creative skill set and perception that is almost like a hidden power, really. So I just wanted to say, perhaps you need to move, what do you think about moving beyond declaring to celebrating?
Yeah, I think that's another argument, isn't it, entirely? And, you know, we've run a course now 4 times for post-production supervisors. And it's a role which I think is given to disability because it suits home work, but also it's about the intricacy of delivery, you know, which is really, really involved. And a lot of people we've had on that program have been neurodivergent, and they're some of the best people who graduated from it and gone on to work in the industry. So I think that is a good point. Yeah, you know, let's start celebrating this. You know, hopefully you get a slow culture shift, don't you? You know, and away from people being scared of disability and actually people embracing it as a good thing, especially in certain roles, but not just in certain roles, in everything really. You know, it should be seen as just something that we always do, that we recruit, you know, 20% disabled people on every film. I mean, that's my personal target. It's not like the industry target, like the BFI's target is 8%, I think. Give me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I think it's a brilliant point, Gavin. You know, we should do more.
Cool, thanks for that, Gavin. Shaker, you got a question or a point you want to make?
Yeah. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Shaker.
I was one of the participants on the June program that 104 ran, and just after the program finished, I was going into hospital for surgery, another spinal stabilization surgery, because I'm physically disabled, but I'm also neurodiverse. However, my things haven't gone to plan, and where I was supposed to be in hospital for 6 weeks, I suffered an accident in hospital and fractured my spine in 3 places, and I'm currently looking at being in hospital till January, and all of that. Now, what this is leading up to is, you know, given the disability, given I'm a person of color, given the kind of limitations that are faced, attitudinal, you know, limitations that are placed by people from an able-bodied world that sort of is the majority in the film industry and TV. For me, right now, I'm feeling like I'm back to square one and having to, when I come back, how am I going to make up for the time? How am I going to explain my absence? So these things are running through my mind, which are creating anxiety, even though I should be just resting and not thinking. But given the way I'm sort of my kind of thought patterns work, I'm obsessed with cinema, I'm obsessed with film. And that's all I actually think about and about working. So my mind is like, how will I explain myself? You know, how will the people I need to talk to, will they even say, you know, pick up the phone or open the door, and respond to a Zoom invite? And how many times will I have to explain that this is the reason I was away, and how much of a hurdle that will that prove? Will they see me as a liability, even a bigger liability? Because I was supposed to be doing a shadowing job in September. And obviously, once this accident happened and I had my revision surgery, and they told me that you're not going to be able to do anything up until December, January, I informed them, the company I was doing the shadow work with, and I actually heard a couple of people say, well, you know, this is clearly you're clearly a liability, and we had concerns about this when we offered you the shadow work, you know. And so that kind of attitude also sort of creates this anxiety in me, thinking, what am I supposed to do? How am I going to cope with this? Is there something I can do, or am I opening a new conversation here, or a conversation that's been had many times and there are no answers to?
Yeah, I mean, first off, Shekhar, I'm really sorry to hear, you know, about what's happened since the program, because I know that, you know, obviously I wasn't directly involved with it, but I know Katie said what a valued participant you were, you know, and I know that you got a lot out of it. I hope you did. And but I think it is something that is unique to disability, isn't it? That these kind of career breaks due to health that people have to take is really difficult. But I'd like to pick up on something that you said as well about the people who you were meant to be doing the shadowing, saying that you were a liability, because to me that seems like prejudicial, you know, and I think, you know, it's difficult, isn't it, because you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, but I suppose we have to, don't we? But it's really, really sorry, I've just
Sorry, I think he's had to go and sort something out at the moment. He's turned his mic off there. Is that what he was saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it does sound difficult there. I mean, I think where he was leading from that was possibly about being prejudicial if that's their approach. I mean, maybe you want to say a bit more about that. Maybe you don't, but it's the idea that if they are
scary.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Child invasion.
Okay, there's some kids. Didn't know it was in the background where you were.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was just saying that it sounded like where you were going with that was perhaps that there's some kind of legal ramification there. You know, it's like people saying liability and so on. I mean, you know, again, interesting. Like, how do you couch this? Because you don't, like you said, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, but at the same time, you have to assert yourself if these things are taking place. Yeah, I mean, surely, yeah,
and I think that's a really difficult thing. Is it's an industry which is sort of run on conviviality, friendship. You know, as I said at the beginning,
very
if you're
blurred.
seen as a kind of agitator, but also in terms of employment law, film and television, film more so, television less so, is really still the Wild West. You know. It's really difficult because it's a freelance world. You know, you're as good as your last job, and people want to do things that, you know, the easy way a lot of the time with people that they know. And obviously, I'm not saying it's right, it's like that, but that's what it is, and I think it is changing quite a lot, but it's not changing fast enough, and it's really hard. But I mean, what I would advise, Shekhar, is just to be honest and you know, say I have a disability, and really, if they're the sort of people who've got a problem with that, I think there is legal recourse, but B, they're not the sort of people you want to be working with, if you know what I mean, and I would really hope that you have a speedy recovery where you get to the point where you feel you can re-engage, and we are here for you, you know, and I know you're in touch with Katie at 104 as well, and we can help and support you with that. So because we do believe you're a great talent. We want to see you working and making your first feature. And I think it's tough, because who knows? Fiona Lamptey may no longer be head of UK film at Netflix by the time you've got through your recovery period and find you're in a place where you can start working again and developing and maybe want to get out into that world. Max Park may no longer be at Film for. Mia Bays may no longer be at BFI. It's a fast changing industry as well. I think that's part of the problem. There's paymasters, but stay in touch and hopefully.
I was just hoping. I suppose it comes back down to the mental health issue, that anxiety, that kind of worry that starts dogging you, because you can't avoid it, even though you try to be sort of use all the tools that you've gathered over the years, from various people in the medical profession, how to cope with situations. But I think coping with situations is one thing, but I think in the real world, when you're, like you said, time is money, where people are, it's a business, you're really kind of, how do you cope with that? How, what are the tools to cope with that realistically? Because, I sometimes think that that I'm lost slightly, and my neurodiversity kicks in and I'm sort of panic attack gets worse. So I'm thinking, but the thing is, I just refuse to give up. I just cannot give up on what I want to do.
I expect you're putting your life experiences and this experience into your filmmaking as well, which is it's something that's always good to do, I think, isn't it? Whenever you go through something like this.
Sure.
So
yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shekhar. Yeah, all the best. Yeah.
Thanks. All the best, Shekhar. Thanks for being open about that. And what we intend to do, and initially it was going to be on a Saturday in November, but we're still discussing that, with a colleague of mine who is an NHS psychotherapist who I've known a long time, under the umbrella of the British Psychological Society, which I'm a member of as a chartered psychologist. We are planning under this British Academy scheme to run an event on anxiety and the film industry. So that might be relevant for you and others here today. And we will obviously publicize that on the website, and you'll get emails from Raina about that. So hopefully that will be taking place and that will be of use. So thanks for being open about that, because this is very key within the industry, I think. Thank you. Louise, I see you've got your hand up there. Would you like to ask a question or make a comment or anything?
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm fairly new to my disability and I am struggling to find my place still within film and television. My background was documentary production in broadcast, and I can't go back to it. And I can't find a route through. And I was just wondering if there was any advice or any pointers for perhaps where I should be looking. The only thing I can think of at the moment, having explored a lot, is to do something like screenwriting, because my situation requires me to work remotely, because on top of my own disabilities, I'm the carer for my partner who has disabilities and is agoraphobic. And he was a camera operator. He can no longer do that. He's a good editor. He's done a lot of editing, but again, we don't have credits in the new areas we're looking at. So it's just if there's any advice on what we can do to stay within the industry, because it looks like we have to leave.
I mean, I would suggest, just off the top of my head, post-production supervision is a thing that really can suit home working, as long as you've got the broadband, etc., for delivery of big files and whatnot. But because we've run these 4 courses, it's now another organisation called Post Super, who we used to work with, who are running it next time. And I think the deadline is probably coming up for that soon, for applying for that. But if that might be something you'd be interested in, but that's certainly staying within industry, and he's pretty well paid as well, which is always good. And it's Gemma Nicholson Post Super, so perhaps if you look on the Screen Skills website, I think that's a really, really good role. But I think a lot of roles in post suit home working, increasingly I directed a drama for BBC earlier this year, and most of the pre-production was done on Zoom, to be honest. That was in the sort of coming off the back of Omicron, in sort of Jan, Feb this year. But still, I think increasingly people are doing loads more work. It's just the on-set thing. That's what you're saying. You're not really going to be working on set. But yeah, I think I would look at post roles. You know, and even things like, you know, we're running this course on digital map painting. The details are on our website, 104films.com. We're Screen Skills are also running a course for disabled participants, which is for VFX. You know, so that's worth checking out as well. I don't know, that might not necessarily float your boat, but I suppose just off the top of my head, that's a way of staying in industry and using the skills that you've got and the knowledge you've got already, I'm sure, from the background in docos to, you know, and bringing that into, you know, into a different area.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It's the issue's been the lack of credits when we've been looking at opportunities that we can pick up on. So yeah, retrain a sensible route.
Yeah, I think retraining and also the map painting we're doing. I don't know about the post super stuff, but the map painting and the VFX has paid placement opportunities as well. Okay. So you know, you get paid. It's not loads in the first initial thing, but then the idea is that you make contacts within the organizations you're with, like whether it be Lip Sync or I don't know, Lex Hag Post or Digital Orchard or somebody like that, and then you got, you know, £600 a week placement there, and then I always say that to everybody. I'll plug my training program, my map painting training program. Yeah, but it does come with a placement for some of the participants, £600 a week for 10 weeks. But then you're in with the organization, you know, and there's every chance they might keep you on, or you're going to make freelance contacts there or contacts with other companies. So yeah, please do check it out, you know, if you're interested.
Thank you. And thank you for all that you've talked about today. It's been really good. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Louise. Cheers.
Just to add to that, Louise, and others might be interested, we are planning a screenwriting session as well. I mean, that was the initial focus of this British Academy funding that we got, was to do with screenwriting. And so, yeah, working on that from initial basis of doing a treatment, setting up a treatment, and that area, as I mentioned before, John Sailing from the Writers Guild, he is doing an event on the legal side of that. So what rights do writers have? And that will be really interesting. Again, we'll share that with you. Yeah, thanks for that, Louise. Thank you. Do we have any other further questions here? I know Evol.
Hello. How are you?
Hiya, you're right.
Justin, it is me. It is not evolved from After All. It is in fact the Dark Fox. The darkest.
Hello, Michael.
The whole film, and I've been waiting for some time now for my question, but here we go. So, pandemic has been roughly quietened down now. Everyone's going back to work. Everyone's making films again. Everyone's making film festivals. But even so, it seems to be quite a hard time for us disabled people to go about submitting our films that we created inside these festivals. And no matter how much we try really hard to, we just don't seem to, I don't know, get credited, selected, or even recognized enough. Even in my own hometown, Bristol, I'm finding it very difficult to just get my work and my film out there. So my overall final question is, what do we as disability filmmakers in general have to do to go and really make the effort to get more and more inclusion out there? Do we have to go on a revolution or something? Do we have to guillotine certain people not on their deathbeds? What do we have to do? Because it's really frustrating and it's really sort of, you know, a bit depressing. I mean, try as we might on Film Freeways on a website, we just can't seem to catch a break. What more can we do to work together on this, to involve the inclusion upon this matter altogether?
That's a good question. I should say that I know Michael, because we are working, 104 Films, specifically my business partner Alex Osborne is producing a film which Michael's directed called Dawn of the Dark Fox. Still called Dawn of the Dark Fox, isn't it, Michael?
It's still called Dawn of the Dark Fox, but then that is the thing. For 9 years, we have been working on this. 9 years. And it was tough enough getting funding. During a pandemic, it was next to near impossible. Now, after a pandemic, we are still having this issue. disabled people just can't seem to catch a break, as I said, trying to retrieve funding or trying to get instantly recognized. And there's 2 other films I'm doing. Meet the Meta-Humans with my partner in crime, Sam Downey, into my own film, A Moment of My Time. And it's just a struggle. My partner in crime, even now, is making some revolution into bringing this into the BFI's authorities. But even though there are letters of complaint, still though, it's very tough. And we have all these wonderful films, all these great, fantastic pieces of creativity, just wasted, just like that. Your thoughts and views on that, Justin?
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And one thing I was thinking as you asked the question, Michael, was about Without a Box and Film Freeway. Well, it's now Film Freeway, isn't it? Without a Box is no more. But that is the platform by which you submit your films to film festivals, and loads of major film festivals use it, like Sundance and South by Southwest and London and Edinburgh, all the rest, all the big ones use it anyway, and it's very inaccessible actually, and there is a discussion, and that's something we should talk about actually with the BFI, that they're a commercial venture, American commercial venture, and they're very inaccessible. So that's one thing I think we really need to engage with them, as the main portal for submitting your film to film festivals, and making sure that they're all accessible,
Yeah. Did you know that in Sundance alone, the amount of applicants for that, where it comes to disabled people, zero applicants, apart from yours truly and my partner in crime, Sam. And that's the only applicants for disability filmmaking. So yeah, I say that.
Yeah. They've also got but yet at Sundance they have tried, champion films such as The Peanut Butter Falcon or Coda, which have disabled characters but have non-disabled writers and directors, right? So it's frustrating, that the voice of disability is not being heard at that festival specifically, and I think that's a learning curve that they have to think about. I mean, I take on board your comments. I think it's hard to get into any festival. I've never had a film we've had one film at Sundance. We had the short film of Notes on Blindness at Sundance, and a film called Unrest, a doco that we were associate producers on. So it's hard to get into any of these big festivals. That's what I would say. I mean, as you know, Michael, there's some really good and really prominent disability film festivals. So I think that's a good place to start with them. There is Oscar Bright. There's Real Abilities in New York, which is brilliant and has huge viewership. You've got Picture This in Calgary in Canada, which is fantastic. You've also got Superfest in San Francisco. So there are some good disability film festivals. But what you've got increasingly now is you've got festivals which have sidebars, which have disability sidebars. So a special section of disabled filmmakers, and some festivals are doing better. You should try Slam Dance, for instance, which is a big top 10 festival in the US. And that has got a whole raft of disabled filmmakers and a whole sidebar of stuff. Really interesting work they're doing there. And hopefully Sundance can learn from them a little bit. You've also got Sydney Film Festival, which has a sidebar for disabled filmmakers. I've been trying to get London to do it. I mean, the whole idea is, if you've got a sidebar, are you saying these films aren't good enough to be in the main festival? Which of course they are, So it's a difficult argument, isn't it? But at least you're getting your foot in the door with these big festivals. And I think that within the next 2 or 3 years, I think London will have a focus on disabled filmmakers. There are a few, we've got this film, My Eyes Are Up Here, written by a disabled woman, Aminta Verdi, at London Film Fest, but there isn't enough. Yeah, there isn't enough. So we need to do more.
Here's hoping. Thank you for your question. Now, I want you to forget that I was ever here, Justin. Forget that I'm here. I'm going to mute myself. You'll never see me again. Not on this.
Thanks, Michael.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. I think we've got time for one last question or comment. If anyone's got any intervention, as they say in France, anyone got any comments they want to make or questions finally to Justin?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's been an epic one, isn't it?
It's been really awesome, and I think it's been really wonderful. Thanks so much, Justin. Amazing, amazing. And we do have the
Thank you.
transcript. We do have the transcript, and we do have the recording. So hopefully everyone will be able to see that, or get a copy of that, or be able to go on the website if you're interested in reviewing things. I've been taking notes here. I'll write them up. But really, really amazing. Thanks so much, Justin.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and good luck and thanks to you all. Do check out the website, especially if you were interested in any of the courses. We've got a few things on at the minute.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending today. And yeah, check out 104 Films. Check out Evolution Film as well. We'll let you know about the future events. I mentioned John Sailing. That's probably in what we call Reading Week in universities. So this will be like a month today, round about then. And that's Writers Guild. So that's on screenwriting. And then later on in the year, as I mentioned, with Tabitha Draper on anxiety and film. And I think that would be really useful as well. But we'll put all of that up there and you'll get details about that. So yeah, thanks so much. Anyone else want to make any last comments? I don't know if Raina is back with us. She's at a British Film Institute event today at Birmingham City University. So
I'm here.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Anything you want to add? It's been really wonderful. It's been really, really wonderful. So thanks everyone for your questions as well. And of course, especially to Justin at the beginning. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah,
Raina?
thank you, Justin. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who participated. Please, if you do have any questions, I see that the chat has gone mad on this end. But if you have anything, just send us an email. And our email is on evolutionfilm.org. I have put it on the chat as well. And we will let you know. We have your email, so we'll let you know for any further events as well via email, whether that's going to be Reading Week, as Jason mentioned. Once we finalize it, we're going to let you know.
Great. Thanks a lot, Raina. So yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Hopefully see you soon and keep in touch. And as I say, we'll be putting up excerpts. We've just been contributing to a film that's being finalized in Liverpool, and Raina's husband did a behind the scenes documentary on that. So little excerpts from that will appear on our website as well, called Ryan Can't Read, with neurodiverse actors, and a really good project there. So we're developing further projects, and we'd like everyone to keep in contact, and hopefully we'll keep in contact with 104 Films. We've got small pots of funding to make films, and as I said at the beginning, we're applying for further funding as well. So we'd love to work with you on that, to collaborate on further finance for film, for inclusion. So yeah, thanks a lot, everybody.
Great.
Thank you. Very inspiring.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Cheers.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Nice meeting you all. Goodbye.
Good to see you.
Goodbye.
Cheers,
Nice to see you.
Yeah, we'll go through all the comments as well and all the details on there. That'll be good, because we've got all the links and everything people have been posting, which is fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah. How's it going there? How's it going?
Yeah, it's been really good.
I better turn this off. Stop recording.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's stop recording it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it goes to the cloud now.